welcome everybody to the third and final Q&A of this retreat. Welcome to ask any questions you'd like. So who would like to begin? I think one of the quickest ways to get a mind that's blank is to ask people, do you have any questions?
Works every time.
Works every time. Yes.
During Buddha's time also, some people became Sotapanna immediately, but throughout their life they remained only Sotapanna.
You're saying with Vipassana?
In Buddha's time.
In Buddha's time, sorry.
Yeah, people like Anath Nikaya and Visakha, they became Sotapanna very quickly. But I think till the end of their life, they were only Sotapanna. So in these days also I see people become Sotapanna. It takes a long time to become another. That is the reason.
Well, I could only...
Delson, could you repeat the question for, please?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. The question is, in the Buddha's time, we see some individuals becoming Sotapannas and getting stream entry, but they don't move forward, or it takes quite some time for them to move forward towards sakadagami and so on. Is that right? Is that the question? Is that right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I could only give you my understanding of it, or how I would probably look at it. It's quite possible that those who do gain Sotapanna quite quickly had a very clear mind to be able to see the Dhamma and then be able to listen to it and then experience stream entry without meditating. Meaning they probably became Sotapannas upon hearing the Dhamma, and so they didn't move forward because maybe they didn't practice samadhi, maybe they didn't continue to develop bhavana, continue to develop samadhi. So that's one possibility. And another possibility is that for some people it takes time. Some people it does just naturally take time. It's just a matter of how quickly you're able to let go of things and how clearly you're able to see dependent origination, how clearly you're able to see the impersonal nature of things. And the more you let go, the easier it becomes for you to experience the next attainment. So that would be my understanding of it.
What is your understanding about this concept of Pāramitās mentioned in commentary?
The Pāramitās, or the Paramis, yeah. What is my understanding of that? I see those as qualities of mind to be developed, regardless of whether if somebody is taking the Bodhisattva vow and continue to develop them over lifetimes, or whether you develop them in one lifetime just as a non-Bodhisattva. If you think about it, in the case of the Buddha or the Bodhisattva who becomes a Buddha, they have to develop each of the paramis, and I think it depends upon the Mahayana tradition and Theravada tradition. We'll stick to the Theravada for the time being, where there are certain qualities like patience and loving kindness and compassion, generosity and truthfulness and so on that have to be developed and ultimately perfected. In fact, the paramis or paramitas mean perfection. It's a mind that is perfected in all the wholesome qualities, or the main fundamental wholesome qualities. That to me also indicates, and this is just my putting forward the idea, that for one to really make progress in this practice, for one to really make significant development in this practice, and for one to essentially make the mind ripe for an attainment, it is actually very important to develop these paramis, because you require certain aspects of the mind, like sila, which is including, taking the precepts and maintaining the precepts, including generosity, including gratitude, and whatever else it might be, in order for you to progress, in order for you to have an attainment. So we see also for the two chief disciples of Buddha, Moggallana and Sariputta, they too had to develop the paramis to an extent, but not as long as the Bodhisattva had to in order to become a Buddha. But I think generally speaking, it's important to develop these qualities. The more you do, the easier it becomes for you to have a purer mind. And the purer your mind, the easier it is for you to see dependent origination, therefore have.
Delson, can you, with sort of continuing with that question, can you talk a little about also karma and the times we live in terms of people successful attainments?
Yeah.
Remember, I asked Bhante one time, and he said that if you are a Sotapanna, you'll come in as a Sotapanna. If you've been you'll come in in your next life, you'll come in as a Sotapanna already. Although
Right.
it seems like that is a little. I always felt like it's a tricky question.
Yeah. Well, I would agree with that, because I see that based in the suttas, where if you do become a Sotapanna, you have up to 7 lifetimes before you attain arahantship and then get off the wheel of samsara. I think there are certain individuals who do become Sotapannas in a previous life, and then when they come to this practice, there is just this immediate understanding. There's this immediate quality of mind that's able to see the effectiveness and the wonderful nature of the practice of the Dhamma. And so they already have some kind of an understanding in it. Now, it is interesting that you mention it, because when you talk about stream entry, that is really the destruction and elimination of the first 3 fetters. So for a being to be born as a Sotapanna in a new life, in a next life, would mean that they already have some kind of faith and conviction in the Dhamma, the Buddha, and the Sangha. So that to me would indicate that they probably grow up or are born in a family that is Buddhist, perhaps, or has some connections to the Dhamma. And they don't have beliefs in rites and rituals, which means that they probably have a mindset already, which is, doesn't get bogged down by certain kinds of ceremonies and rites and rituals. And then the belief in the personal self, that's an interesting one. So for a being to be born in a condition where they don't have a belief in a personal self would be very interesting for that mind. So that mind doesn't really have an idea of a soul, or doesn't come to a point where they can conclude that there is a permanent self. So I think it is possible. I think such a mind would be very pure, at least in terms of not getting bogged down or distracted away from the Dhamma. Of course, there will still be craving and aversion and so on. Now, when we talk about karma, depending upon the way that the mind responds to situations and the way that the experience has been for the attainment in a previous life, that Sotapanna could be either a Sotapanna that has 7 lifetimes, or what is known as a Kolankala Sotapanna, which is to say family to family or clan to clan, and they can go up to 3 lifetimes. And then you have what is known as a Ekabija Sotapanna. That means a one-seater. That means they only have 1 more lifetime before they attain arahantship. And that's a question to be asked, which is, what is the difference then between a one-seater and one who is a sakadagami? And really the difference is, for Sotapanna, it's a little more difficult to let go of craving and aversion than it is for a sakadagami. And more importantly, even for a one-seater, even for an ekabija, they will take a little more time to recover from the effect of that craving and from the aversion. In other words, with the sakadagami, they might recognize the craving and arising coming up or having already arisen and then letting it go quicker than a one-seated sotapanna would be able to. So I think karma here, we have to see it in twofold. One is, as I always say, old karma and new karma, taking it from the suttas, which is the effect of previous choices. I mean, the technical term is, I believe, vipaka, which is the fruition of previous karma. So everything that you experience in this life up until this point is old karma. And new karma is what one chooses to do with it. So if the feeling that is experienced is pleasant, painful, or neutral, and there is any kind of identification with it, taking it personal, and then causing craving or aversion to arise, that taking it personal in itself is new karma. And that can cause craving to arise. And then if that is not understood and let go of, that can cause clinging and being and so on. So that deviation point or that delineation point, let's say, is between feeling and craving. That's where the choice you have is in that moment to decide if you want to take it personal or you want to see it as being impermanent and therefore not worth holding on to and being impersonal. If you're able to see that in every moment, then you don't produce new karma. Instead, all the old karma that is experienced is just experienced and felt and fades away. I always go back to the context of the meditation. When you look at it in the meditation, you see hindrances arising. Hindrances arising are basically old karma. They are the effects in the mind based on choices of breaking precepts at a previous moment, at some point in time in the past. So when they arise, if there is any other reaction other than right effort, which is to say that the mind takes that hindrance to be personal, identifies with it, pushes it, resists it, does anything with it except for seeing it for what it is and letting it go, then that mind is liable to produce new karma, and that's why it strengthens that hindrance. Whereas if you siksar it, if you relax and let it go, then it fades away. It might come back again, but it's much weaker. So in both the context of the meditation and in daily living, any old karma that's experienced and that's abandoned might be experienced again, but it won't be as strong of a force in the mind as it was before. Anyone else?
How does forgiveness meditation help in all this process?
Sorry, that was very muffled. I wasn't able to.
How does forgiveness meditation help
Forgiveness
in this,
meditation. Yeah.
in this process? How does it help?
All I heard was forgiveness meditation. I think it's just my. Sorry.
How does it help in this process?
Oh, how does forgiveness practice help in the process? Yes. Okay. How does forgiveness practice help in this process? So forgiveness, as I see it and as I understand it, is a great way to let go of certain kinds of emotional blocks that are preventing the heart from experiencing loving kindness, that prevent the mind from experiencing and being able to send out loving kindness to oneself and to others. And if you think about forgiveness, it is different than the loving kindness practice because you stay in the first jhana because you're verbalizing, I forgive myself for not understanding, or I forgive you for not understanding. Or even when you're walking, I forgive you, you forgive me. in that process of forgiveness, the feeling that is there is release. It's a pure form of just letting go. It's just relaxing and letting go through that forgiveness practice. Now, I know Bhante has had a couple of different ways of when he's talked about forgiveness. There was the, let's say, one certain model that was there and a different model, and then the newest model, which is the relax and forgive. But the forgiveness itself is a process of letting go. In that moment of saying, I forgive myself for not understanding, there is an experience of letting go. There's an experience of, okay, I did that. Now I'm letting go. There's no more judgment in my mind about what it is that I did or did not do. Likewise for the individual that the person might be forgiving. And it is also something that helps in terms of, I always say, or I've begun to say that two of the things that I've noticed with, in terms of common challenges in the practice for meditators when they're starting out, is that they try too hard, they push too hard. And the second is they don't accept themselves as they actually are. They don't accept the moment, they don't accept reality, they don't accept their mind as it actually is. That non-acceptance is in itself is a block for the practice. So in forgiving yourself for not understanding for certain things, in forgiving others, you're letting go of that non-acceptance and you're coming to a point where the mind is saying, okay, this is how the mind is and I'm okay with it. I accept it, let it go, and then continue on. So there's a lot of relief to be experienced with forgiveness practice, but I see it as being secondary. I see it as being a practice that's prescribed, like a prescription, where, okay, you can't send loving kindness, do forgiveness for a couple of days, see how you feel, and then come back.
I wanted to say something about the forgiveness too. It seems to me, so I was doing forgiveness and then was done and I cleared out some really great things, but then it just sort of came back. And I find, even though knowing exactly what you said, trying too hard and I don't even know if this is going to question, not accepting oneself, even knowing that and keeping that kind of like, I know I'm going to not try too hard in this retreat. I mean, that's really what I was doing. And I mean, I could just see myself saying, okay, I have one day left now. Or what about my next retreat, my next sitting? It was always like that. And I would just try to relax it. But it was just like this intense wanting to get somewhere. I don't know what you can say to that, but.
Well, from what you're saying, it brings up an interesting point that if I tell you not to try too hard, or if anybody tells anybody not to try too hard, it's important not to try too hard to not to try hard.
Yeah.
Can I just add something? Something that I found really is helpful, seems to be helpful with people trying too hard, is to really clearly identify it as being unwholesome. And somehow that, it's like, oh, it's not, that it's filled with craving and it's really, to say it's unwholesome. What you're doing is unwholesome. And somehow that, it sort of like trips a switch a little bit for people to understand, oh, and they kind of get it. So I don't know if that's helpful, but
actually that's pretty vital. Yeah.
It is.
Because you also see the consequence of trying too hard already, which is, that when you try too hard, restlessness arises, tension arises, tightness in the head arises. And one of the things to that point, which is, how do you notice the difference between what is wholesome and unwholesome? What is unwholesome will always cause tightness and tension in the head. So if your intention is unwholesome, you will find tightness, you will find tension. If it's wholesome, your mind is open and spacious and clear and filled with joy or any other wholesome quality of mind. So trying too hard, yeah, I think that's a great way of looking at it. If you see trying too hard as being unwholesome, then you can just see it as another distraction, as a hindrance. Let it go and then pull back a little bit and then continue on.
Well, I have a follow-up question to that. And that's really good. I like that idea. I had not thought of it as being unwholesome. But how everyone is saying, will say, well, just tell yourself it doesn't matter what happens. I don't care what happens. You're not. And that's what it seems that a lot of people who will come to retreats will have sort of like this beginner's luck because they don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
It's like they just do great and they have no idea that this is possible. And whereas, those who have kind of, been there and now we know what to expect or, what to look for. So now it's, is there an answer to that? How to not, how to let go of the expectation? Maybe it's the same.
I think it's the same thing, really. It's seeing that expectation, seeing that anticipation as being a hindrance and saying, and so recognizing that moment of expectation, oh, here's a signpost towards cessation, here's a signpost towards this, seeing that and saying, okay, that's just another hindrance. I'm going to let that go. And then coming back to the practice. Yeah, obviously the attitude should be of a beginner's mind, and it is easier said than done, but if you really generally just allow the mind to say to itself, okay, I don't really care what happens, and just sit down for the sake of sitting down, sit down for the enjoyment of practice, sit down for really looking at everything. So having that kind of perspective, as well as sort of like a scientific perspective, which is like, okay, I'm going to look at this and see what this is all about, what's going on here. So in other words, when you do that, you're bypassing that whole thing of, oh, I recognize this signpost and I'm anticipating this is what's going to happen. You have the attitude of, okay, let's just see what's happening now. Let's just see what's happening now. Let's just see what's happening now. So I think the simplest and the most practical part of that is using that whole process of seeing it as a hindrance. When you recognize that you're having an expectation and it jolts you out of, getting deeper into the practice, see it for what it is and let it go. 6 hours.
Okay, thank you.
Delson, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
And I don't know if this at all is helpful or not, or just to me, but I often start my meditations with a few verbalizations to set myself on the right track. And one of them is, may I let go? And depending on what it is, sometimes it's hindrances, sometimes it's a sense of self, but often is actually expectation, because it's a big one for me as well, is just, especially you get to a certain point and then you expect something. Well, sense of I expect this next thing to happen or the same thing to happen again. And that really is, it's another hindrance, like you say. And sometimes verbalizing that at the very beginning, or even sometimes verbalizing a few times during my sit, I found to be very helpful as a reminder to watch out for the expectation as a hindrance all by itself.
Yeah, that's a great practice, I think, especially when you start off with verbalizing and saying, I don't, let's just see what happens. I don't have any expectations of what's going to happen. It is really just like, one of the analogies that I use is like when you have your favorite show and there's a new episode that comes on and you have no idea what happens. So your mind is like really like pinpointing what's going on. You have that kind of attitude and say that every meditation session is just a new episode in this season of TWIM. Now, let's see what happens. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm so happy. And we have a new show. We have a new episode. Just pay attention to everything, That's another way of looking at it. Whatever helps, just see what helps. You have to experiment and see what kinds of ways, little things here and there help you to let go of those expectations. Anticipation.
I have a question that might be related to this line of questioning, but earlier you mentioned patience, and sometimes I think of patience as really closely related to equanimity. So, accepting yourself as you are, and accepting others as they are, and accepting things as they are. But it seems as though, in my mind, only the context is different. So do you have any thought on patience and how it relates to equanimity?
So equanimity I see as being a quality of mind, in the sense that it is a mind that has basically no expectations. It's not anticipating it. That's really what it is. When you look at the Upanisa Sutta, there's 23 different links over there that talk about dependent origination, to that which causes suffering, the transcendental dependent origination, that is, in a sense, I call dependent cessation, that leads towards the cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness, and the experience of nibbana. And you will see that towards the end of that, towards nibbana, towards freedom of mind, it says in Pali, yata buddha jnana dasanam. That is to say, the knowledge and vision of things as they really are. And I equate that to equanimity. You're just plainly seeing things as they really are, without any reaction to, without any response to them, just seeing things as they really are. That's really what equanimity is. It's complete balance, either being affected on it on a positive level or on a negative level, or even on a neutral level, just seeing it as it really is without identifying with it. Patience I see as being a, let's say, an antidote, in a sense, for that expectation, for that anticipation of something. Patience is just waiting, not even waiting. Waiting would be a wrong word, because if you're waiting for something, you're not actually having patience. That's the way I see it. You're waiting in line, you don't have patience. But if you're just in line, in the queue, doing your thing, then you have patience. You're just there. You don't have any expectation of what's going to happen, and you're waiting in that sense. But waiting for nibbana is in itself a type of craving. It's the craving to be, the craving to have something, craving to possess something. So patience is also a deterrent against that craving to be something, craving to become something, craving to possess something. So hopefully that clarifies the distinction.
Yeah, thank you.
Somebody asked a question in the chat. Do you have any opinion about the authenticity of jatika and Cariyapitaka? I mean, do you believe that those are authentic words of the Buddha? So the jatika is, I guess, the jatika tales of the rebirth stories of the Bodhisattva. But I don't think I've come across this word, Cariyapitaka. What is that?
Oh, that is another book from Khuddaka Nikaya. So it's similar
I
to
see.
that.
Yeah. I believe these are all part of the Khuddaka Nikaya. I think they're part of the minor, the minor collection. So I know that in some parts of the minor collection, especially as you get into the later stages, you have something known as the Sambita Magga. Yeah. So that's like and it's very Abhidhammic in nature. If you think about it, when you read it or when you see it, it's like having a bunch of lists and analyzing things to the very, very, very minutest level. So I would say that take them as being stories of inspiration, stories of being able to inspire yourself to see what it is possible that a bodhisattva goes through to become a Buddha. The Jatika tales I see as that. Cariyapitaka I can't really comment on, but if it's something that is in the Khuddaka Nikaya, it's the 50-50 thing. Khuddaka Nikaya there are some real gems in there. you know, like the Sutta Nipata, um, the Udana, and things like that. Some really nice things there. But the Khuddaka Nikaya is very interesting because it is the list. It is the collection of minor discourses, but it could be like this big. That whole book, like there's so many discourses in there, and some of them are attributed to the Buddha, and some are attributed to Sariputta, and some are attributed to others. So I wouldn't really say if they are necessarily all the Buddha's words either.
Right, Delson.
Yes.
Just it's not really a question. It's just a request. Could after this is over, could you spend some time and stay on the call with me? I have just a question about something that arose today in the personal practice that I would like to discuss with you, if that's okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, another kind of a question. So this retreat has been really good for me in that I got back to sitting for long periods, and I'm really happy for that. And really before this, I was really enjoying reading a whole lot. So during the retreat, I've read a lot less than I normally read out of suttas. And I find that in a lot of ways, I just have so much enjoyment and happiness in the suttas. Like it just sets my mind straight somehow. And maybe I'm being lazy, but I don't enjoy the meditation as much. I am now, I think, because I've kind of gotten back into it more, but the meditation is like, oh, I'll do like an hour, but reading is like what I really enjoy. And so I wonder, maybe that's just at different times in your, practice, maybe you do different kinds of things, but I guess I'm wondering, how far can you go with, this reading the suttas as your main practice for taking you there, so to speak, to
I would
liberation.
say I would say it should not be a main practice. It should be a supplementary practice. The meditation you should always look forward to. So you should always say, "Oh, great, I get to meditate now." "Oh, 1 hour isn't enough, but I'll make do with 1 hour. It's fine." You know, that's all I have right now. So meditation should be the main practice. Should be the major practice. And then the suttas help to kind of give you clarity on certain things. And then the meditation itself also gives you clarity on certain things. But of course, if you can enjoy reading the suttas, that's a wonderful thing. That's very, very great, because especially that means that your meditation is helping you inform and clarify some things in sutta. Because when you start off on the path in the beginning, or anybody who's a beginner who starts off on the path, and they read the suttas, it is like a secret code. And there's a lot of things that are just, undecipherable until you have the experience. If you're finding yourself enjoying the suttas, then that means that the major practice of meditation, is helping you inform what the suttas are talking about. There's understanding going on. But you have to see that as being like a sliver in that whole routine of the practice. The practice should mostly be meditation, of course, some walking meditation if you can do it, and then some of the reading of the suttas. And ultimately, you want to be able to be in a meditative state of mind, no matter what it is that you're doing. So still be with your object of meditation while you're walking, while you're eating, whatever it might be.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Here's a question. Does an arahant have the capability of knowing everything about anything like different languages and technologies. I would say that the arahant does not have omniscience. It doesn't have the ability to know everything all at the same time. But I would say that their mind being rid of barriers makes it easier for them to learn things, makes it easier for them to be able to absorb information, because there's no hindrance, there's no craving, there's nothing there that hinders the mind's ability of understanding something. So I would say no, they wouldn't have the ability to know everything all at the same time, but it's easier for them to. Plus, another thing you have to understand about the arahant's mind is that they have an intuitive mind. They're always using their intuition. So if there's something that they, they don't know, then they use their intuitive mind. And it's like, since I love Star Wars, I'm going to use the Star Wars analogy. It's like using the Force, getting connected to the Force and understanding what's going on with the person's mind, understanding what choice or what decision would be best for the situation, coming in attunement with the reality and seeing what is best for everybody involved. And that is really using intuition, understanding on a different level, not based on analyzing or rationalizing or reasoning out something, but just using this feeling, using the Force, using intuition to come to an experience or to a decision that is going to always serve that mind or that person well, always. And you'll see that the answers that you get from the intuitive mind just come like an insight, and they make complete sense. There's not one level of non-clarity. It's just so clear that it completely gives the answer that you're looking for.
Delson, can I ask you one question? Is very, in I think it's near the area, I would say, for a not for arahant, of course, like it's maybe the person that who's been practicing a lot, and how that impact to the memory. It's a lot to do with the attention too, right? Because like for example, I'm meditating, like 2-3 hours a day daily. So it is not more than normal people, right? And I'm in the training. Nothing stick. It's all passing through me. So I was wondering, like, what is happening? However, like I think I can piece it together, and then later on I can probably use it. But in terms of memory wise, it's like, because I can really feel it. It's like kind of like, it's all going on and just zone out kind of thing. It just mine is just want to be quiet. That's it. And it's so it's a normal. Nothing come to kin is normal.
It's super normal, but but actually, when you think about memory, what is memory? Memory is really the recognition of something. That is to say, it's the perception of something. It's the sanya. So Vedana and sanya are always intertwined. Feeling and perception are always intertwined. So memory is really, or perception is really rooted in memory. But I see memory as being automatic. Now, feeling and perception still continue to be there for the liberated mind, which means there's still memory going on. There's still an experience of being able to remember things, whether it was in a past life or if it was in a previous time in this life, or, so you're always making new memories. But those new memories then don't stick in the way of craving, don't stick in the way of personalizing and identifying. So when nothing sticks in the mind, that means that mind is rid of any kind of barriers for that time. So there's no craving there. There's no grasping. The stickiness, the sticky quality of the mind is because of the grasping. But they can still understand what's going on and develop or produce memories based on what it's experiencing. But again, like I said, those memories won't be taken to be personal.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. Thanks.
Mhm. Any more questions? Okay, so before we end this and share some merit, I'd like to thank you all for participating. Thank you for all of the efforts that you're doing for your own practice. It makes my work easier. And thank you to Suttavada for Kin for facilitating this, and of course for Sil doing the afternoon sessions. So thank you, everyone. Let's share some merit.
We are also grateful for all the guidance and the
May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we have thus acquired for the acquisitions of all kinds of happiness. May being inhabiting space and earth, Devas and Nagas almighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you so much, Delson. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
So-
you, Delson. It's been
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you all.
Nice to see you all.